so I just saw The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and it was pretty fun. The story's about a girl going on a road trip with her family to college, but they wind up unintentionally being humanity's last hope to be saved from a robotic apocalypse. This movie was written by Michael Rianda and Jeff Rowe, both of whom worked on Gravity Falls, and I can really tell from this movie's sense of humor. It had some charmingly awkward moments, other times it would just be bizarre, but what worked best for me were easily the visual gags. And I'm not just talking about the main character's doodles that pop up every now and again. There are a lot of clever jokes and references written on posters in either the background or foreground, and a lot of the time I found the character's body language to be a lot funnier than what they were actually saying in that moment. Not to imply that the actors did a bad job. All of the performances were pretty good, my favorites coming from Olivia Colman and Eric Andre. It was more reeled back than what I would expect from him, but in no way was he inappropriate for the role, and I still found him really funny. But I'd be lying if I said the comedy worked for me 100% of the time. There are definitely quite a few jokes in here that I feel have been done to death at this point, and there were a couple moments where I felt like the film came to a grinding halt to explain a half-decent joke. Fortunately, however, it never crossed the line for me to the point where it became an overall annoying experience, which is a much harder task than you might think when writing a story where the main themes are about technology and the internet, because in my opinion, that was the biggest obstacle the filmmakers had to get over. So often when it comes to movies discussing this topic, it always comes off as try-hard cool or over-the-top preachy, but the writers here really knew what they were doing and they approached it in a way that was very comedically effective. There were admittedly a few parts where I cringed at the internet humor, but that's come to be expected at this point with these kinds of movies, because the internet itself was already such a polarizing thing when it comes to comedy, but they do lampshade it in a way where the joke is more so referring to the absurdity of internet culture, rather than using every opportunity they can to implement memes that'll be outdated in a month. What I did find unforgivably outdated, however, was the story. At one point I was like, oh wow, you're getting this out of the way immediately. Are they actually gonna let the story pull its own weight without forcing in unnecessary conflict? But after what I thought was a subversion of that trope, they immediately undid what they set up, and it just played out exactly as it always does. And the worst part is, if you just barely tweak the story to take that out, the character still could have gone through the same arc without it being so conventional. So in the end, it just kind of felt like dead weight. There's plenty of people out there who either don't realize or don't mind seeing the same movie over and over again, but I find films to be a lot more engaging when they're not so predictable at every turn. And I completely understand that storytelling has been around for so long that it's borderline impossible to avoid any and all tropes, so I guess a better way of putting it is that it's more of an insult to injury when the story is not interesting or entertaining. I realize I could have communicated that better in my Raya review. My main issue there was that it failed at both the comedic and dramatic elements, so I wound up not being able to care about anything at all and was just left bored. In this movie's case, I found the characters to be much more watchable and funny. So while the cliches may have bothered me, I felt it had more to offer through its presentation, thus making it a more enjoyable and memorable experience. The messages it does send aren't necessarily new or profound, but their main goal was to just take this goofy concept and go crazy with it, which was in no small part accomplished by the animation. What I love most about it is that it's not really trying to push boundaries per se, but it has a very unique and identifiable look that shows off its own personality, which is something I could hardly imagine coming from Disney or even DreamWorks. I really love the route that Sony's taking these days when it comes to their animated movies. The fact that they're experimenting a lot more often with different art styles and seem to be giving more creative freedom to their filmmakers is really admirable when just a few years ago they were making some of the worst factory-produced garbage. This movie may be far from perfect, but it's another step in the right direction, and it's something that I think will connect to a lot of people. So go check it out.